welcome to the latest in our Lockdown Vodcast series, sponsored by our good friends at Green King. Now, with the domestic season having been given the green light for August the 1st, we thought we'd look at how you build a successful county squad. What's the magic formula? Which ingredients are key? My guests have all been successful county captains. Mark Alleyne led Gloucestershire to a remarkable 5 one-day titles in just 2 years, including a clean sweep in 2000. Chris Adams drove Sussex to their first ever county championship in 2003, and then probably won it again in 2006 and 2007. And Ryan Ten-Doeschate, his Essex side, have won the championship in 2 of the last 3 years, and are the defending champions, of course, and also the T20 Blast champions. Fellas, a very warm welcome to all of you. What struck me, and Mark, we'll start with you, is that before your times at the helm, the county, each of your counties have gone a little while without success. What kicked things off for you in terms of the process of becoming a successful side?
Okay, so hi guys. I'll get told off if I don't correct you right from the start. So there was 9 trophies in 7 years. Just saying, okay. Yeah, you don't know exactly what kickstarts it. But in 1997, when I was appointed captain, we were doing the kind of pro sportsman thing. You turn up, you get it done, you see how it goes. And it was going okay. But there was a group of us that sat down and thought we wanted a little bit more. And I think at the time, we just had a guy that kind of fell into the coaching role at Gloucestershire. And we thought, have we got the best support that we need? And we didn't think we did. And we convinced the committee and the chief exec maybe to advertise for the best option, whatever that may be at the time. And they did. And we went through a rigorous process and ended up with John Bracewell at the end. Which, I mean, the process in itself was really good. And we just really liked what John had to offer. You know, he didn't commit himself to Gloucestershire for years. Unlike some of the other coaches who said, yeah, I've been following you for years and years and all the nonsense. He said, I want to be an international coach. I want to use you guys as a bit of a stepping stone. And we thought, brilliant, that's just what we need. A bit of energy, a bit of a punch. And he came on board, and I'll get a chance to tell you the rest later.
Okay, to be continued. So a coach relationship is important, and Grizz, you had a fantastic relationship with Peter Moores. You also had some pretty good players. I guess you win nothing without a good team, but plenty of good teams have not won. So what were the key ingredients for you guys?
Well, I think the important thing is to acknowledge that success doesn't happen overnight. It's over tiers and levels. So, you know, the journey for Sussex had begun before I joined them. They've been through a revolution, had a complete resignation from a complete committee, new committee brought in. Tony Pygott, who was the sort of spearhead of that campaign, deserves a lot of credit for the success that was then going to have to come over the years. What he did was genius, really, is he identified the key roles in the club, on the field and off the field, and he went about putting people in those positions who he thoroughly believed would make the right calls and be the right people in those positions. That was the first point. We then focused on a team, so the team started to evolve, and the culture within that team, which, you know, Pete Moores is all about culture and environment and putting 13, 14 players together in a squad who were going to make a difference and want to make a difference. And that was the building blocks. And we got to, and we had some peaks and we had some troughs. In 2000, we finished bottom of the second division. We nearly lost our jobs. We survived. So there was an element of patience from our committee and quite a quirky chairman in Dong Tranmere. And I think that was the turning point for us, because I've heard it so often that sometimes to go forward, you've got to reach rock bottom, and we reached rock bottom in 2000 before we were able to take it forward and be really serious. And what Peter and myself did was just, we identified where we wanted to go first and foremost, which was to win the championship. We looked at who was currently doing that. So Surrey, Leicestershire, that at that time, what they were doing and how they were doing it, and we tried to do it as equal, if not a little bit better. So we put a lot of work and effort in, and we reached the point at the end of 2002 when we thought we'd done as much as we could, and we needed a bit of help, and that help came in the form of signing somebody who was a bit X factor and would take the game to a different level for us. So if I could give you the analogy, is that in 2002, if we played really well for 4 days, we might win a 4-day game. You know, we had the likes of James Kirtley, Jason Lurie, Robin Martin-Jenkins, really good bowlers, but they had to work really hard to get those wickets, those 20 wickets in a game for us to win a game. And you introduce all of a sudden a Mushtaq, then their job became a lot easier. They bowled less overs, they stayed fitter, they stayed stronger for longer, and Mushtaq took a load of wickets. We scored enough runs, we found a formula, and I'm pleased to say that we didn't veer off it for a few years, and we were very successful with it.
Yeah, I think the overseas factor will come into play a little bit. Obviously, Mark had Courtney Walsh for a number of years in cricket, and Ian Harvey and one or two others in one-day cricket. But Ryan, you've had an excellent signing in Simon Harmer, who's been a big catalyst for you guys. But let's talk let's bring it up to date, because these guys were so 20 years ago, but you are kind of current.
He's a man.
Even though you've kind of handed over the reins to Tom Westley. Firstly, happy 40th, and many congrats on the twins. Not so much on the hairdo, but how are you? And tell us a little bit about your time as captain of Essex and how you've come to be so successful.
No, all great. We're back at training this week, so it's a real nice change in routine. You know, getting back in amongst the boys. Will be full training from next week. But the points that Mark and Chris made, resonates almost identically with the way Essex done things. Big changes in key appointments. So for us, it was a new director of cricket, so to speak, or chairman of the cricket committee, which was Ronnie Irani. Then brought in a new coach, was Chris Silverwood. And also a change in mindset. I think Essex has always been perceived as a team that does well in one-day cricket. And we kind of let red ball cricket slip, and we got a little bit lazy in how we approached it. So the mind shift to say, right, for the next period of time, we're going to try to be good at red ball cricket. We knew we were slightly better than the other teams in Div 2. But that change in mindset helped us a lot. And then, again, what Chris said there, I think the timing not only of one really gun player, like you said, Simon Harmer, but the timing of Dan Lawrence and Tom Westley maturing at the same time. Jamie Porter became a good bowler in those sort of 2 years, 2016, 17. Sam Cook came on the scene, to replace guys like Dave Masters and Graham Napier. So I think the timing of the cycle is also a bit of luck, and if you get that right with the sweeping changes, it's a recipe to make new records.
You also had a pretty decent player retiring from international cricket, I guess, who came back to you last year full time in Alistair Cook, which is kind of handy. But the thing that struck me as well is that you won Division 2, and when you get promoted from Division 2, all the talk is, well, it's a big step up to Division 1. And I think that might have been where you were at the beginning of the season, but very quickly it seemed to be that, hold on, not only are we looking to survive in Division 1, we can win it. When did that penny kind of drop?
It dropped off the very first game. We played Lancs, and we were battered for the first 3 days, and it took a kid in Dan Lawrence, who I think was 19, he might have been 18, 19, and he batted out the last day to get us a draw. And from that point, we realised, if a guy who's hardly played first-class cricket can stand up here, we're making too big a deal of the gap. The yo-yo effect is pretty well known. But again, that mental shift from not allowing yourself to think, well, the gap is so big. And that's where Chris Silverwood was really good. He was good at staying in the moment, compartmentalising things and just focusing on the very short term. And, you get a bit of momentum, a bit of luck, and all of a sudden we're ahead of the championship. And we started believing we could win it from probably the end of May.
So that was the impact of a young player. Mark, it strikes me, having played against your Gloucestershire side around the turn of the century, that there were a lot of really key senior players, none more influential, I guess, than Jack Russell, right up to the stumps, making everybody kind of tick. How important were those senior players, and what role did Jack play?
Well, you're right. And then you look at all the teams, Sussex and Essex, a lot of their success is getting the dynamic right within the group. And very often it will include a lot of senior guys, the right kind of senior cricketers you want. Not guys that are just happy to turn up and, pick up the check, but guys that are really going to inspire and lead a group of young cricketers and show them the right way to play the game. And Jack Russell was a great example of that. Not massively vocal to the group, but just the way he went about his practice before the game and then deliver on match day. And he was relentless with that. And that was a really good example for the rest of the guys. But it's not to maybe understate people like Mike Smith, who he wasn't quite the same, but was very diligent in how he went about what he had to do. So everyone had their own way of doing things. And I think that was the kind of exciting thing about it. There's loads of different ways to get this done. And we accepted that and just trusted people to get the work done.
And how much did you embrace that kind of the white ball cricket? Because your success was in the shorter forms. Did you, to some extent, kind of push red ball cricket to one side? How was it when you went out onto the field in a county championship in terms of your belief compared to when you went onto a cricket field playing one-day cricket, where you were the best in the country by a distance?
Well, we're always very envious of guys that can win the championship. I mean, at the time, it was 64 days of cricket, 16 games. It was a real tough call. And with 3 other competitions, you really needed a top squad to compete in all 4 comps. At the time when we started, the Super Cup was introduced. I think Sussex were in it. And strangely enough, we were in the Super Cup because we finished in the top 8 of the championship. I'm not sure who thought that up, but that was the case. But you only had to win 2 games and you were in the final. I mean, 2 days good cricket. I mean, you could lose a championship game playing 2 days good cricket. You know what I mean? So 2 days good cricket, we were in the Super Cup final. And that, because it was so accessible, really got the juices of the guys going. And we thought, this is something we can really specialise in. And because of the depth of the squad, we were unable to maybe compete as strongly, mainly due to getting those 20 wickets that Grizz was talking about, compete strongly in a 4-day game.
Your overseas players at that time, I'm thinking of an Ian Harvey, was that very much geared, was your focus, we can win one-day titles? Because obviously you'd had Courtney Walsh for a number of years, who was an absolute superstar, but did you kind of zone in more, thinking we're going to go all out for these one-day titles?
Yeah, naturally. I mean, Courtney was a superb 4-day cricketer, a guy that can win. You can lose the first 2.5 days and he can turn up and make a difference. The downside of that, too often you can sit back and just rely on those guys doing the business. And I think I heard the word lazy a bit earlier, and we're all guilty of being a bit lazy and relying too much on the superstars. However, when Ian Harvey came, he brought a bit to the bowling, a bit to the batting. We quite liked his kind of Aussie approach to the game. Very fearless, and it really suited the kind of style of cricket we wanted to play.
Yeah, Grizz, I mean, you mentioned Mushy earlier, absolute superstar. I mean, I think it was 100 wickets in many of your title-winning seasons. I know as an opening batsman, when I come to play against Sussex, I'd spend a couple of hours the day before preparing to play Mushy, roughing up the nets, practising my sweep, practising coming down the wicket, and then was often LBW Lurie first ball of the match, having focused too much on Mushy, which I guess makes the point that you weren't a one-man team, whereas he was the main guy for you. You had all kinds of weapons at your disposal.
Well, yeah, I mean, just listening to Mark, I wanted to jump in, and my own experiences of playing against Gloucestershire in that period was they just fought like hell on the field as a group of 11 cricketers, every one of them. They fight for every run. I think about Martin Ball coming on to bowl in the middle overs. He was a fantastic bowler. Really stemmed the runs in there, knowing, and what their great skill for me was, and they changed the game, was that they believed, and Boo Boo correct me, but they believed that if a team had, they could defend 60 off the last 10 overs with hard bowling. And he was a genius with that out the back of the handball. It was absolute genius. And a couple other guys who none of us knew much about, bowlers, who came on and bowled absolute gun Yorkers as well from nowhere. And I played in that Super Cup. And we were in the quarterfinal, and we were coasting. Michael Diver and myself, we were coasting, and they got Diver out. They fought. They got that wicket, and they choked us up. But you got that real sense of a collective 11 v 2, if you like, on the field. And that's really my feeling of the Gloucester team of that era, not sort of one person or two person doing the job for them, but all 11. And we had a similar thing at Sussex. Now we knew we had a gun in Mushtaq, and not just a gun bowler, but a gun bloke as well. Anybody who's spent any time around the guy will just know what a wonderful character he is, and he had a great ability to bring calmness to any situation, and also inevitably when we lost a game, which we did in that 2003 campaign, when we won the championship for the first time, we lost games early on as well, and he had a great ability of being able to calm the dressing room, calm the coaching staff, calm the supporters, and say that actually, do you know what? The only thing that matters is the next challenge, and the next challenge. And I think he, along with obviously Peter Moores, hopefully myself, were able to inspire, and following on from getting confidence from somebody like Gloucester, we always felt a sum of all their parts, that if we could introduce that into our cricket, and that if everybody did their bit and fought as one, as 11, then we might make a difference. And it did in the end. I think that's my memory of that first year. Obviously different going through the next 2 or 3 years, but first year we had a fantastic dovetailing of performances. So Tony Cottee had a brilliant first half of the season with the bat. I came in with runs in the second half. Murray Goodwin was consistent throughout. Matt Pryor grew as an individual within the team. Jason Laurie, James Kirtley, Robin Martin Jenkins, solid as you like, But, then Mushy with his 100 wickets, and hey presto, what a year.
What a year. It was a pretty decent formula. I want to get on to a little bit to give it a captaincy style. Probably leave you to the last, Grizz, I think, on this one. I mean, Tendo, I think you've been on the record as saying, sometimes a captain's role can be overrated, and that it is the team that wins and the coach plays it as part. But how do you kind of handle, or how did you handle your guys, and just what kind of a role did you play as captain, do you think?
Look, I don't say the captain doesn't play a big role, but I think, particularly tactically, most things are just opinions. And I think with so much information available, you don't really get tactical geniuses anymore. So my approach, going back to your question, was more a macro environment approach. I felt that being a good county captain was managing the day-to-day feeling around the club, which is, not only the 11 or 13 or 14 guys that you're relying on to play week in and week out, but the guys who don't play, making sure you go to second team games, and making sure when office staff have drinks that the guys go and attend, or if they can't attend, you apologise for not being able to attend. Just the really small things. And then when it came to cricket, certainly not captaincy by committee, but I was very keen to extend the ownership of where the team was going to nearly everyone in the team. So I would seek opinion a lot of the time. I would consult guys. I would be really clear in explaining the things that I wanted and why I wanted them. And I was also always keen to put my hand up and say, look, this might not be the right thing, but I was all about buying, and I managed to get the majority of the guys to buy in for the majority of the time. And I didn't set out with a philosophy. I approached Graham Smith before I took over, and I said to him, can you give me some advice? And he said, I can tell you one thing, just be yourself. There's enough traits within every individual, whatever your personality type is, there's enough traits, intrinsic values in those different personalities to be a good captain. And I think that was very good advice. I think players see through very quickly if you putting on trying to be someone else, that you're not, trying to be the guy with the father facts and the backpack who sits in the front of the bus. That wasn't my thing. So I think being authentic and really being yourself is good advice for anyone who wants to get into cricket captaincy.
Yeah, sounds like good advice from Graham Smith. Mark, would you agree with that? Is a lot of captaincy about being yourself? What was your style?
Well, absolutely. I mean, a bit like what Grizz said earlier, there are no shortcuts to anything. And for me, captaincy was about investing the time and relationships with the players around you initially. Because, I mean, you are kind of charged with making some decisions on the pitch, not on your own all the time, but you need to have the trust and respect from the players around you to make it work. Because we all know there's not one decision that's always the correct decision. It's the people around you that kind of make it work and make you look good almost. But I do think I came around at the time when I think the role of the coach changed quite a bit. When I started, the role of the coach was to improve the players' kind of technique and they kind of focused on that. Then it got a lot broader, in my opinion, talking a bit more about match strategy as a team. And I think that kind of diminished the captain's role a little bit. But there's still a massive part for the right captain to play in teams. But the players now are well guided and have real good leadership qualities in themselves. So I think you don't have to be a standout captain all the time. Just get some good people around you and kind of manage it.
Come on then, slightly different captaincy style. I'm imagining, thinking back those 20 years, probably a bit more in your face than these two degrees, a bit more confrontational, a bit more perhaps lead from the front, a bit more argy-bargy. Would that be fair?
Argy-bargy.
Yeah.
Well, look, you know what? First and foremost, I count myself as very lucky because I was able to team up with one of the best coaches I've ever known of, anyway, in Peter Moores, and a magic man as well, unbelievable. And he opened my eyes to what might be possible. Now, I always questioned Fultz, why. So when I arrived, it was, we'll never beat Surrey. Well, why? Well, they've got 11 international cricketers, but why can't we beat them? Why can't we put a team together that can perform and believe that they can beat them? So the club had never won the championship. We will never win the championship. We always finish second. Well, why? What do we need to do to get over the line? So my style was always to question habits of the past, if you like, and try and infuse future habits which might make a difference. And I guess from a management point of view, from my own with my players, you have to know your players. You have to, because they're all different as individuals. I'll take two examples from my time. So Matt Pryor and Mike Yardy, two very important people in the team, two unbelievably different individuals. Mike Yardy, who took 0.5% of my time to manage. Matt Pryor, 99.5% of my time to manage. It was just, that's the way it was. Matt was very needy at the time, but that was his character. And both brilliant cricketers, both brilliant people, both brilliant performers. It's just the way that you have to understand your players. And then I guess as a captain, I was always looking for an edge. How can we get an edge over a team? Now, it wasn't always that pleasant and nice. I hope I played the game within the boundaries. I'll tell you a story from that championship year, which Matt Pryor reminded me of the other day. And I didn't know this at the time, but we played Essex, your Essex Tendo at Arundel. And we had our team brief meeting. And I was obsessed with Ronnie Irani, your chairman of cricket. As I said, Essex is Ronnie Irani. It's all about Ronnie Irani. And Ronnie was one of those players that would always perform against Sussex. And I said, if we take Ronnie down, we'll take Essex down. So knowing a little bit about Ronnie and him as a character, I knew that he thrived on status and respect and all those sort of pillars that get instilled. And I had in Matt Pryor with mushy bowling, Matt Pryor stud silly mid-off, the perfect weapon to try and take down Ronnie. So I pulled Matt before the game and I said, listen, you're going to deal with Ronnie, okay? As soon as he comes out to bat, I want you to get under his skin. I don't care how you do it, but I want you to get under his skin. So that morning, he walks out Arundel, Ronnie, bristling, shoulders back, takes guard. He's about to face his first ball from Mushy. And Pryor goes, right, let's see what the old man's got then. And of course, boom, he exploded. Ronnie explodes, pulls away, looks at me, points at me, says, what's going on? You can't be playing like this. I think it was second ball. He ran down the wicket, missed it, stumped. And, we had to get him off the field. He was raging. What we didn't know at that time was that very morning, he'd had some really bad news in that his knees were in such a bad state that he'd been told he'd never bowl again. So you can understand the sort of emotion around that and the scenario. I never knew that had gone on. But that was kind of, if you like, we were always looking for an edge in terms of how can we sort of get one up on a team and without sort of going beyond the accepted boundaries of the game.
Yeah, you had one or two ding-dong battles with Warney as well. Would that be fair? There were some good ones, if memory serves.
We had some absolute humdingers. And I have the fullest of respect for Warney. I mean, unbelievable bowler, incredible cricketer, probably the best. I mean, Malcolm Marshall, Courtney Walsh, Curtly Ambrose, Shane Warne, they're all brilliant bowlers, aren't they? All fantastic. I've been privileged to play against them all. We actually, finally, it was Pete Moores who got me over the line with Warney, and that we couldn't find, we were sort of locked. And he said, have you tried killing him with kindness? And I said, what do you mean? He said, try killing him with kindness, he'll hate it. So we had a game at Arundel where they arrived, and we had this wonderful, guys might remember him, Brian, who was the gate man, very tactile, liked to sort of give the players a bit of a hug and a cuddle and a bit of over-intention.
Wouldn't work in 2020, but yeah.
No, it wouldn't. But I said to Brian, when Hampshire arrive and Warney gets off the bus, I want you to go in there and give him the biggest hug whatsoever and tell him that you're there for him this week. And blimey, he did that. He went straight in. He went straight in for the full hug like that. And Warney was like, whoa. And he never came out of the changing room for 4 days at Arundel, Warney. We never saw him until he was on the field. And inevitably we beat him. He hated it. He wanted that fight. He wanted that confrontation. He wanted that edge. And again, just another story, brilliant for Peter Moores. And he wasn't coached then at Sussex, he'd moved on to England, but that was just a conversation as to how we might be able to get the edge on a team.
Tendo, any battles, in particular battles over your two championship winning seasons, or any matches where you perhaps got over the line in a close game where you thought, hold on, this is the moment that we know we're onto something special here?
Well, can I first say that that game Chris is talking about is my second championship game, and I remember it very, very well. That atmosphere, and obviously, Sussex were a red and accomplished team. I remember Matt Pryor being at silly mid-off, and I'm pretty sure Timmy Ambrose was behind the stumps as well.
That's it, yeah.
And Sussex had this aura about them, and it was part of who they were. I think that's gone out of the game a little bit, Fultz. I don't think the battles and the verbals and the mind games happen at the same level, and mainly because players are playing with each other far more now. Traditionally you play with Sussex 16 games of the year and you don't see guys in the winter, whereas now with all the leagues, I think guys get on a lot more, and that sort of aggressive, real niggly stuff doesn't happen. And to answer your question, no, I can't think of any real nasty battles or words. Somerset's always a game for us where we go head to head. But no, I think we've more tried to focus on, I think the biggest hurdle in being a successful championship team is fighting fatigue. And that might sound very obvious. And like Mark said earlier, it's 64 days of cricket, or it was back then. To get up for a session every day is very, very tough. So I think conserving your energy and really just focusing on trying to deliver your best for 2 hours is probably a more efficient use of energy in the modern game with the amount of games going on.
I'm going to say the only way I stayed in the Kent team for 7 years is that I got quite good at verbals. I couldn't score any runs. So I used to silly point at short leg was my position too. I remember those days, and I remember battling with you two guys, and and with Matt Pryor as well once or twice. But we won't go there. Well, just quickly, just to kind of finish off, because time has beaten us. But Gloucestershire back in Division 1. There was so much excitement about them being back after a long time away. Obviously, we're not quite sure what's going to happen come August the 1st, what formats we're going to be playing, so much up in the air. But they look again like they're onto something. They've got a really good spirit under Richard Dawson, and there's something happening. You just sense it from the sidelines.
Yeah, no, the group have been working hard and starting to aspire to bigger and better things. I think when players start getting in the kind of peripheral of the England squads and stuff like that, it really does get the rest of the group going. And they played some good cricket certainly over the last 3 years. And it's good that they got up this year. And you know, maybe they would have done an Essex, I don't know, and won it this year, but we'll never know. But, well, I don't know. I'm a bit out of touch. Is Championship cricket going again?
We don't know what's happening yet. We just know it's going to start on August the 1st. It could be a 3-over thrash. We're still waiting. At the time of recording, we're not quite sure on the formats. There'll be a T20 blast. Tendo will probably know more than we do, but whether it's going to be red ball, white ball, we're not quite sure. But Grizz, just quickly on Sussex. I mean, if you look at the team on paper, especially with the bowling attack, with the likes of obviously Jofra, not that Sussex will probably see too much of Jofra, but Chris Jordan and Ollie Robinson, again, that England have obviously got their eye on. That you've got a bowling attack at your old county that is the envy of many. Yeah, and some good young batters as well. I mean, Phil Salt is going to be real special, I believe. Yeah, there's a lot of good things going on down at Hove. I guess predominantly one-day cricket is where they're looking, and the T20 50 over, they wouldn't agree with that publicly, but it looks that way. And also this production line of England players as well. I've always been a firm believer that to go back to Tendo's point, to win the championship, you've got to look after your seamers. And the best way to look after your seamers is get a damn good spinner who's going to bowl a lot of overs. And like at Hove, uphill, often into the wind, you need a spinner to take care of that end. And, you know, Sussex got some good one-day spinners. They haven't got a really good four-day spinner. So how well they'll do in four-day cricket, I don't know. But certainly a lot of good things going on down there, a lot of good people there, and some exciting young players as well. Tendo, defending county champions, defending blast champions, whatever the season looks like come August the 1st, there's still going to be a bit to play for. There's going to be a lot of players who are out of contract at many counties. So this short window that we've got is an opportunity for them to showcase their talents. But have you talked as a group about defending these titles or playing some good cricket, or is it still a bit early for that?
No, we haven't had a chance to get together. I think mindset about what you said is really important. You could think it's 2 months, it doesn't really matter. Obviously, some guys are playing for contracts. But I think for Essex in particular, with the transition to a new captain, we probably need to start looking at a few new batters as well. So it's actually not the worst thing for us, a small, short period of time where we can afford to be brave and try a few new things and hopefully give Tommy a bit of time to bed in as the new captain is actually right for us. But we will be trying to play the best cricket we can. The bigger picture is always to get better and to keep strengthening. So we won't be better.
Well, great stuff. Lads, listen, thanks very much for joining us. Fascinating stuff. To Mark Alleyne, to Chris Adams, to Ryan Tender-Scarter and to Green King for their continued sponsorship. Thank you very much. It's been a great chat. We'll see you again.